And we're live. Welcome back, folks. Today we're doing a podcast with our dear friend Travis. Travis actually signed up for a call with me today, and I decided let's just make this a podcast. So his goal is to catch me off guard so that I come off as a complete moron that doesn't know what he's doing and has no right to coach either of these two. But I don't think that's going to happen. I'm betting on myself today, just like I usually do. So Travis, go ahead. Hit me with your first question. Travis Reynolds,
All
Travis
right.
Dunks on Instagram, people.
Not gonna lie, John caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting this to be a podcast, so I'm gonna be struggling here too. I'm already caught off guard,
I'm
but
the one that caught Travis off guard, people.
I wrote down questions for John, and I thought it was gonna be a one-on-one call, so they
Now
weren't
the whole
in
world
a
is
way for
listening, Travis.
podcast. But okay, okay,
There's
well,
nothing to be nervous about. There's nothing to be nervous about. It's not
I'm
like
not
people will
nervous
see
at all.
this.
I'm feeling great. Okay, so let's just start with something like the phases of tendons, like stage one, stage two, stage three, stage four, because right
I was
now
I was waiting
I'm
to release this information in a very creative way, and I hadn't figured it out yet. But I'll give you
okay.
the
Here we
small.
are.
All right. So basically, I was trying to find a way to easily explain why certain exercises are better than other exercises for tendons. And I was easily able to do this myself, but I wasn't able to help other people understand. So then I was like, you know what? A better idea is to have it actually emulate our THP name. So we actually called it tendon health phasing. So there's 4 phases in tendon health phasing, which ironically is THP. Coincidentally, that was on purpose so that it never gets away from this coming directly out of my mouth to explain this concept. And the first phase is whether the tendon is holding a force isometrically. So if you were to look at a spring, and I like to use extension springs as a way of describing how a tendon functions, an extension spring can stretch quickly, it can shorten quickly, it can stretch and shorten quickly, or it can just hold a load. Most times, extension springs are just holding a load. So the first phase is anytime the tendon is holding tension at the same exact tension. And that is an isometric. That's what an isometric is. That's why we pick an isometric. It's not because there's something inherently special about the word isometric or anything else. It's just purely that the spring-like tissue is under the least amount of load. And so we call it load management because we're managing those types of loads. So that's the first phase. The second phase is going to be stretching and shortening that tendon at very, very slow velocities, because the faster we stretch the tendon and the greater we stretch the tendon or that extension spring, the faster we stretch it, the higher the load. So that would move it up the tendon health phasing protocol. We'll call it that, the tendon health protocol. And if you have a phase two exercise, this would be similar to, and this applies for any tendon, is a slow, short, and shortening and stretching under load. And the more load you have, the more intense that phase two exercise is. Phase three exercises are going to be phase three exercises. Yes, Isaiah, I can give you screen share. You could have just interrupted me. Who can share? All participants. There we go. Sweet. So phase three exercises are when we are storing energy. That is a phase three exercise. So that's if you're, and we're storing energy quickly, specifically, because technically on the second phase, we're actually storing energy on the down phase, at least at the very bottom. There's a brief phase three portion of it when you change direction because you're stretching it quickly. And when you're stretching it quickly, that's a phase three exercise. So that increases across this tendon health phasing. We have a higher phase is a higher intensity, that's a higher capacity. So a phase four exercise, and that phase three exercises are things like stepping off a box, uh, stepping down a stair, and just landing on the stair, walking downstairs is a phase three exercise. Isaiah, do you have any examples off the top of your head of phase three exercises? I typically just use box drops or depth drops because they're the easiest thing
Yeah,
to isolate.
I'll
Walking
pull it
downstairs
up.
is one.
Phase three.
Phase three exercise right there. Thanks, Joe. Joe Bullen. So phase three exercises. Phase four exercises are going to be anytime the tendon is storing and releasing energy. So this is the thing that people want to do in the highest volumes. It is the coolest thing. It is the thing that determines your success in quite literally any sort of athletic activity, right? And so as
Here's
T-Dub's
phase
coming into
four.
the phase four tendon right here, uh, phase four tendon exercise. So T-dub, as he's coming in and he plants his foot, anytime he pops off of that quickly, or there's a stretch, which is the down phase of his jump, and then pushing back up, and that's the up phase of the jump, that is a quick stretch shortening. We call it the stretch shortening cycle because that's a phase 4 exercise. So plyometrics, sprinting, cutting side to side, running, literally anything you do when you play basketball is basically a phase 4 exercise. Volleyball, anything you do in volleyball basically is a phase 4 exercise outside of standing in your defensive position. Phase 4 exercises are the most intense. So that's how you define each of the phases.
And I want to butt in here as well because I was helping Austin in person, like with his session. And a mistake guys make is they'll go from phase 3 right into like max phase 4. But you can break down the intensities in phase 4. So
yeah,
like the highest intensity thing would be like a max effort 1 foot jump. But you can do standing like off vert, like jump off vert at like 50% effort, and that's going to be way less intense than a full speed 1 foot jump. But they're both
and
phase
this, I
4.
posted this on my story today. Someone was like, I don't know how this came up, but I was like, I don't do dead mills and I don't do sled walks, backward sled walks, because they are phase 4 exercises. So when you contact the ground, when your foot hits the ground, your knee has a brief peak force. That brief peak force and dropping off of that peak force is in a stretch shortening cycle. And so if you're starting at sled walks or dead mills or anything else, you're contacting the ground. Your foot is striking the ground and it is loading the patella, specifically the patella tendon and quad tendon, in a phase 4 function. So if you have a tendon issue, that is not where you'd want to start. And yeah, you could drop the intensity of that phase 4 exercise, but the question remains of how is this actually going to benefit you? And if your driver of rehab or health or whatever else is going to be, look at the foot strikes the ground every time he does that and pushes backwards, he has a period of time where the tendon briefly stretches. And if your driver of this is, oh, well, I want to do this and I want it to be for blood flow. Blood flow is not the driver of adaptation in tendons. It is not the driver of adaptation. Otherwise, you could just tourniquet your leg and do nothing and your tendon would get better, but that's not how it works. So we don't fully understand it. Blood flow probably plays a role. We don't fully understand it because we can't measure. We don't have a way to measure blood flow in a tendon. We don't see much blood flow in a tendon in general. You can look that up. There's tons of research that demonstrates that. You can look at Jill Cook's research, Ebony Rio's research, Craig Purdham's research. They've done literally probably hundreds of research studies on tendons. I think it's actually probably in the 50s to 80s for Jill Cook alone.
And I also want to make it clear, there isn't anything inherently wrong with exercises. It's how you do the exercise and how you implement it. So like John said, like you can use reverse sled walks. They just should be implemented
in the 4th phase.
Yeah, a lot of people will use them as like the initial exercise, like the first exercise that they will do when trying to rehab their knees, when isometrics will be a lot less risky.
Because if I wanted to program dead mills or reverse sled walks, I could, but I would only do it twice a week, and I would do it after doing isometrics and slow squats and depth drops, and then I would do reverse sled walks. That wouldn't be the driver of my rehab progression because it's a phase 4 exercise. That's why I would put it in its appropriate box at the right time. You could increase your capacity by using it, but you have to be prepared for that exercise. And again, this is specifically for tendons. I think maybe there's more relevance if you're looking at the meniscus, because if you're looking at the meniscus, you're not pushing your knee into compression when you do a reverse sled, which is really, really effective. I don't know what is happening in this chat. I'm just going to read it on the live. I have to move side to side because you kept spinning your chair back and forth and I was about to start dying. You're back now, so behave. No spinning. I don't know what you're talking about, but
in the beginning of the call, Isaiah was just like,
it's because I'm kneeling down. I'm kneeling down on my rolly chair, and
his knees.
And I was just spinning.
It just looks so stupid to me.
And then he just killed me. He told me to behave in that final straw. I had to laugh.
I'm glad that you guys are having a cutesy little conversation in the chat while I'm going over the phase 4 tendon exercises in a very serious manner.
We're gonna
That's okay
quiz.
to
We're gonna
say, man.
quiz Travis. We're gonna quiz Travis at the end of this, and if he
And if
fails
you
the quiz,
fail, you're fired.
Bring
we're
it.
gonna give him. If he fails, we're going to give him 20 single leg depth jump sissy squats on
That's
his
right.
bad knee.
The most intense exercise you can do.
Dang it. All right. All right. So
Next
that was a lot
question.
of good information, John. I definitely didn't catch you off guard there. So let's say, for the sake of simplicity, I was just taking some notes. So stage one would just be like pretty much isometrically, not okay. Okay, I'm gonna let you do it. Give me some like very basic ways to remember stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like,
Stage
you know
one,
what I mean?
isometrics. Stage 2, slow squats. Stage 3, depth drops. Stage 4,
Jump.
jumps.
Nice.
You like that?
I do like that.
Watch that back, people. Run it back. What does Austin call me when I put on sunglasses?
I don't
Shades
remember.
John. He says, "Oh no, it's a sunglass John." He just turns into an asshole. Oh no, a bigger asshole. That's what he used to say. I
That's
don't
funny.
know
Okay.
why. That came
Well,
about 2 years ago.
yeah, let me get my next question, because every time you guys screen shared, you just like killed my questions, so I have to get them back.
Oh, my
Okay.
bad.
All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Okay, I feel like a lot of the THP athletes will benefit from this question. So in my past experience with being stupid and over jumping, I would just jump to my heart's extent every single session, and that would lead to knee pain. And it didn't really matter like what this training cycle would look like. I would just jump as much as possible. So like, let's say for future reference, I'm trying to keep my knees as healthy as possible. Let's say I'm looking at Team Builder. I see Isaiah gave me the most torturous, absolute, intense training session week of my entire life. What should my thought process be leading into that dunk session the following weekend? I'm guessing I
The
should back off
following
like
the
inevitable.
following weekend. So
Yeah, like
like this session's on a Wednesday. The lift is on a Wednesday, and you're supposed to have a jump session on Saturday.
yeah, like Isaiah kills me that week in training. It's more intense than the last cycle. Should I just back
Do you,
off
do you
jumping
have
a
knee
lot
pain?
that session? Um, no, let's say I have a history of knee pain, but like it's not like killing me like every day. Like it's like it can present itself if I were to
Like it's
overload.
under control. Like
Yeah.
it's manageable.
So this is you, Travis. Like we're talking about you specifically.
I mean, I guess anyone, just they have a history of knee pain. It could present itself if they're stupid. So like Isaiah kills them with the week of training, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna jump for 3 hours." That's probably not
Okay.
gonna be good,
So I
right?
mean, I would say you need to what's that TV show by Larry, is it Larry David or whatever? It's like gauge like lower your expectation or whatever, or your excitement. I don't know what it is. Anyways, that's pretty much what you need to do. You need to gauge your expectation should directly reflect what you did during the week. So I should expect to jump shittily if I trained really hard during the week, because that's a direct reflection of the amount of fatigue I've actually accumulated during the week. So if I've accumulated a lot of fatigue during the week, Isaiah's written my training, and I have 50 sets of squats between Monday and Friday, and they're heavy, and there's a lot, and let's say that they're explosive. I shouldn't expect to jump high on the weekend. That said, if I know I have a history of knee pain and I'm coming into this based on what I just explained, if you did those explosive squats Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that means you've done basically a phase 4 exercise 3 days of that week. You, best case scenario, get through a session at all. That's a win if you have a history of knee pain. Now, if you're coming in and you're like, I want to have a 3 hour session, you're just being dumb. That's stupid. That's unrealistic. You didn't look at your expectations and appropriately adjust them. You need to adjust your expectation based on what you've previously done during the week.
Wow, that was beautiful. Another greatly answered question by John.
What is this? Is this a Starbucks cup? I think it's New York City. Yeah, New York City.
I think you should put the sunglasses on after every like successful just question that you kill. Just
Where it
like,
like where it like flips and it's like the
yeah, like go ahead and put them on real quick just to show the audience that like you did that. You were him right there.
so
All
that's
right.
we did a podcast with Tia, and I'm planning on posting that later this week. And he was like, I think it's corny when people say they're him. And I'm like, yeah, me
It's
too.
it's,
But
it's
I'm
so
him.
funny. It's funny, dude.
Unless it's John. John's always him.
Facts.
I wasn't born this way.
You're
Trauma.
not him. You're not him.
Trauma made me the way I am.
All right. Okay,
And
so
a healthy
those
dose
are
of therapy.
all right. So those were some of my hard-hitting questions on like the training side of things. So now let's go a little more
You were
scientific
easy.
here.
All
Okay.
right, go ahead.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I know like the general tendon thing is like normal tendon, it's like reactive, degenerative, and then like dead or something. Is that right?
It is reactive. Degenerative is the last one. So you have reactive tendinopathy, and then you have disrepair, tendon disrepair, and then the
Oh
last
yeah.
stage is degeneration. So it's like a heat map. Healthy tendon would be green. Yellow would be like, I don't know, your reactive tendinopathy.
Yeah.
Red would be disrepair, tendon disrepair. And then degenerative tendons would be like black. That's like a non-functional tendon. Looks like a heat map.
Okay.
Isaiah, you can probably pull that up on the Jamie, pull up that clip, Jamie.
I got you,
Yeah.
fam.
I do have a little bit more of that question. I just wanted to make sure I had that part correct. All right. So obviously, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm pretty sure like all of us here have like degenerative tendons to some degree. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it's
So
very unlikely that a jumping athlete wouldn't have, it's a heat map. So it doesn't
yeah,
look, it's not perfectly how do I say this? The tendon would have portions that probably have some element of each of those phases or
yeah.
tendon regions. Like there's regions of each of those. Um, so Isaiah actually has a good example right here. Grand Slam physio. Isaiah, scroll down a little bit. There might be an actual picture of the.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, there you go. That's an
Oh,
actual scan of it right there. Click on that bad boy. So, oh, never mind.
found
Uh,
Command
it.
Z that bad boy. Zoom in. So this is
Con-
basically
Was that Control
what,
Z? Heck yeah.
yeah. So basically the green is where the tendon is pretty healthy, and then you can see the parts, the blue coming in there, and then the dark red, and then now it's really really red. The really really red parts are the tendon degenerative tendinopathy. The green parts are the healthy tendon, and you probably see some yellow and blue in there. That's kind of between, whatever parts of it. So that's basically what you're seeing. You're seeing a healthy tendon compared to one that has parts of, and even in the healthy tendon, you see little spackles of blue, right? So there's
Yeah.
parts of reactive tendinopathy in there, but it's very, sparse. And tendons are super strong. So what's really interesting too, on the bottom one, what happens is cells become hypercellular. So on the really low one, actually even the one above it, what you'll see is the a tendon that's been loaded a lot. There's actually more healthy tendon in that picture, the very bottom picture, or maybe the one above. This could be a different
this
person, I'm
one.
not sure. Yeah, there's more healthy tendon there than there is in the very first picture, than a totally healthy tendon. There's just portions of it that are degenerative. But your tendon is super strong, and so you actually have more healthy tendon in a diseased tendon than you do if you were to accumulate all of the green area. The cross section of the green area would be more, cross sectional area of the green area would be more in a diseased tendon. There's parts of it that are diseased than a totally healthy tendon, because you've adapted so much to get to that point. You have to jump so much, and the hypercellularity and the adaptation and the collagen, the amount of collagen and elastin that is synthesized from that process is actually such that you have more healthy tendon than someone who is fully pain free and has never jumped a day in their life.
That's like my left knee, the one that had the worst knee pain. That tendon's thick as foot.
Yeah.
Isn't it
And
true that tendons can like grow in size too?
yeah,
Yeah,
Isaiah's tendon
my
looked
left
bigger.
tendon is way thicker than my right one.
yeah, because tendons respond to load. So if you look at what makes up a tendon, I think it's like proteoglycan, and there's some
Can't tell.
like there's essentially there are basically receptors all over the tendon cell. And when those receptors basically have whatever stimulus put through them, they are signaled to release whatever ground substance from those cells. So tendon cells, tenocytes, they sense that. They produce proteoglycan, they produce collagen 1 through 4, they produce elastin, they produce basically that's what makes a tendon up is all of these structures, and it creates a healthy tendon over time, and a tendon will actually thicken because it becomes hypercellular. So the dead part of the tendon, that degenerative part, that's like a hypercellular part of the tendon. That's actually not really good at doing much function wise, but it produces all of that tissue, or I guess cellular. It's not even a cell. Like collagen's not technically alive. The tenocyte is actually the thing that's alive, but it's a ground substance, you could call it. Produces a bunch of it, and then the tendon thickens. And honestly, that's usually a sign that a tendon's typically like tendinopathic. If the tendon's very thick, that's what you if you look up pictures of people with really bad tendinopathy on their Achilles, it looks really thick and kind of gross. Isaiah, look that up. Jamie, pull that up.
I looked at my tendon. My left patella is definitely. It appears to be slightly bigger than the right one.
I was
left one's
actually
smaller.
trying to look for thick tendons.
Just look up tendon thickening Achilles. Type that into Google, it'll come up. You'll see it right away. Nodular. Look up nodular tendon. That'll come up if you type that in.
I do have one more tiny bit to end that question on after we get
Go
done
ahead
with this.
while Jamie's pulling up the clip.
Oh, okay. So we all have degenerative tendons to some degree.
There it is. There's a nodular tendon. So if you look, scroll down on the right side, Isaiah, thickening of the right Achilles. You see that in the middle? No, left. Go left, 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 left. Nope, left.
Oh,
Go right there. Nope, to the right. One picture to the right. Right there. So see how thick the one on the right is?
Wow.
That is what tendon thickening looks like. When someone's tendon gets really thick, that's what happens. It becomes nodular. And people usually think, oh, that's the compression from the bone rubbing the Achilles. No, it's because it's hypercellular. So it's a hypercellular tendon, or it's become hypercellular, the tissue, and it's produced a bunch of ground substance, and the tendon's thickened so it can adapt because form fits function. So if you have a thickened, painful tendon, it's because it's been diseased for a period of time. You can get it totally pain-free. And all this pronation BS, I don't even really think is relevant, honestly. I mean, it plays a role. You always want to try to address the movement pattern first, but oftentimes if you just address the actual tendon itself, then you're good to go. Usually you don't want to do surgery or anything like that. I hate when people stick a needle into it or put a scalpel onto a tendon. That's like the worst thing you can do.
Okay, buddy. So here's the final part of the question. So we all have degenerative tendons to some degree. And I actually heard about this in that video that Isaiah sent me of you talking to those guys about like the tendon thing from 2018.
The tendon lecture
video.
I was lecturing.
Yeah, I heard about this in there. So like it's possible to kill a tendon, right? Like you can kill it and
I
it won't come back,
mean,
right?
you could, yeah, you could, if you're dead, I mean, tendons aren't alive. So the tendon itself is not what's living. Again, imagine a spider web, okay? A spider web's really strong, but a spider web's not alive. It's produced by the spider. That's basically what a tendon is like. It produces the tendon cells, and the little spider is responsible, and it looks like a spider, the little cell. It has a bunch of little legs that go out, and they produce collagen. So you can kill the actual tenocyte. Yeah, that's true, but usually cells become hypercellular, and that means that there's more cells actually. So to kill a tendon, you would basically need to be dead to do that, I suppose. There you go. There's a tenocyte.
Gotcha. Okay, I was just wondering because you said like dead tendons and that. So I'm like, is it possible?
Yeah,
for
it's not dead. It just means dysfunction. What I meant is dysfunctional.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm like, I hope I don't kill my tendon for being stupid and jumping for 5 million hours in one dunk session.
No, actually, go down, Isaiah. Down one more.
Okay, well,
Cell
let me prepare
tendons,
the next
tenocytes.
question.
Actually, type in hypercellularity tendon. Type that in. It says 2 L's, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. It'll come up. There you go. Tendon. And I think the one on the left, the first one, might be a good one. I can't really see what it says. Experimental. You can't really tell but I mean, that looks like muscle tissue, but it's probably tendon tissue. If you look on the right, the one on the right, see all the little purple dots? That's hypercellularity. See how it's irregular? It's all different directions, the collagen fibers. That's what it looks like when you start to get to. But they could be looking at That could just be them getting to the bony part of it. Yeah, hypercellularity and neovascularization in contralateral Achilles. So one of them is hypercellular and one of them is not hypercellular. So I'm assuming the one on the experimental side is the hypercellular one. That's what a diseased tendon looks like. And that's what it means. It's not really dead at all. There's cells there because they're trying to produce a lot of collagen, but you don't give it enough time to adapt, and then obviously it becomes dysfunctional and not really good at bearing load. The one on the left is very good at bearing load.
Well, John, go ahead and put your sunglasses on for that one.
I don't need to. That's how elite I am.
This is just normal John. He's just,
to the rim. Sorry,
this is just how John is. He's just like that with tendons.
yeah, when it comes to tendons, I know my stuff.
All right.
I had to
So
research this stuff.
those are like my heavy hitting questions. So now we're getting into more general, like this question's more like theory, I think. So Obi is spamming me. Shame. Give him quasi isometrics for me, please. All right. Okay, so this is gonna be one of those questions where it's like hard to give an exact scientific answer because you can't really do that. But let's say, okay, my last dunk session, I drove to Dan, and that's like an hour drive, hour and a half to that gym. And I was warming up for my dunk session. My tendon was just like pretty aggravated. Like it's like a 3. And like I'm like, okay, well, tendons warm up, so it'll probably screw off by the time I got warmed up. And eventually it did completely screw off. And then I was able to dunk pain-free later in that session, although I could still feel myself jumping lower from the inhibition and all that from the tissue being damaged and whatnot. But like, let's say I keep jumping through that, which obviously I did. How much worse am I making the tendon in that one session of just completely ignoring it and jumping through it?
So your question is, to sum this up, drive to a session, your knee feels kind of trash. You get there, it warms up, you jump through it, you leave. What is the longitudinal, what's the long-term, consequences?
Basically, yeah.
I mean,
I know the consequences.
it doesn't really like the consequences. You're going to be in pain for as long as you don't tear your tendon. It'll be fine. It's just you're going to have more pain. You basically increase the sensitivity of the tendon, so you're increasing the pain. Maybe it became more. Maybe you moved in the wrong direction or along that continuum we talked about between reactive tendinopathy and degeneration. Maybe some parts of it moved to degeneration. It doesn't matter. It does not matter what your tendon looks like under a microscope. What matters is what is your function? What is your function and how much pain do you have? So what is your function after that? Well, I can't walk downstairs. Okay, well, your function went down and your pain went up. That's your consequence. What the actual scan looks like does not matter at all. It is completely irrelevant because we don't care what it looks like under a microscope. If you put my tendon under a microscope or a scan, it probably looks like shit. Or same thing with Isaiah, but guess what? He is the highest jumper in the world and he doesn't have knee pain anymore. That's what matters. So it doesn't matter what the damage is done at a cellular level, a biological level. What matters is, are you functional and are you pain-free consistently, and are you at risk of tearing your tendon? So as long as you didn't tear your tendon, and as long as you know you're going to trend upwards in the subsequent weeks, it doesn't really matter. That's why I tell guys, go have fun, do whatever you got to do. You got to go to dunk league, go dunk to your heart's content. Doesn't matter. Just don't tear it. And I'll fix it. I'll put it back together. It's going to take time to do that. But as long as you don't, do irreparable damage to it, you're fine, which usually you won't. The only time you're going to do irreparable damage is when you start messing with cartilage. That's whenever it's not good. So.
Wow. Cool. All right. I know you're not.
I hope that addressed your anxiety, Travis.
No, that did some good stuff for me.
He's gonna be able to sleep at night now.
Yeah. So I know you're not putting the sunglasses on, but I want the audience to just picture John wearing sunglasses right now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna edit them in because it's gonna take too much work. So I'm just gonna.
So someone watching this is going to edit them in.
I would like that. Hopefully, Super Isaiah does it. My favorite athlete.
Yeah. All right.
He hasn't made any memes recently. It's kind of unfortunate.
Oh, here comes the next meme. Sunglasses John, aka him.
Anytime I answer questions around tendons, Surrounding
No,
tendon.
yeah. So like that.
Wish I got
No.
paid more money to do this. No, I'm playing.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. So I had a I had a question the last time I did jumps on Monday, I believe it was. So right now we're obviously taking me through load management. I think I'm in stage 4, correct, Isaiah?
Phase 4 or
Technically,
stage
yeah.
4?
Stage 4, phase 4, whichever.
Phase
Whatever.
4. Phase
Phase
4.
4.
Phase 4.
Right, Isaiah? I'm in phase 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in phase 4 right now, and
It's not a singular. This is important. You're not in a given phase at any one. You're not wholly in any one phase at a time. It's
oh, my
important.
tendon has to be ready for all of them.
You have to. You're always going to do all of phases. No, not always. That's not true. Sorry. You're you are having phase 4 exercises. The phases are a way to classify the exercises, not the tendons. I would say, I mean, technically it's the
Readiness.
tendon's capacity, but it's a way to classify exercises. So
Gotcha.
you are performing phase 4 exercises in our tendon health. I guess it doesn't work when we do that, but it's technically like they're exercises. If we're going to call it tendon health phasing, I suppose that doesn't work perfectly. Maybe we'll have to rethink the naming. I just wanted to say THP.
Yeah.
But technically you're performing phase 4 exercises. You're also performing phase 2 and 3 and phase 1 exercises at the same time.
Gotcha. That clears some things up here. So this question I'm about to ask, I think it ties in a decent amount to the previous question, but I just want to this is for my own satisfaction here, this question, because like I need to know it. So when I was warming up for my 6 jumps at 85%, my first couple of jumps, like the baby jumps where I'm like touching the rim, throwing down like a baby one-handed dunk, baby two-handed dunk, those jumps, my knee was like feeling pretty tender. I'm like, okay, I might not even make it to 85%. But then after a few more jumps, I actually warmed up enough to hit it behind the back and I was jumping like 85%. And the pain was like 95% gone at that point. So like
Mm-hmm.
my question is, at that point, like
Are you asking why that happened and what's the result of that? And is that better or worse?
kind of like is the like the fact that I like continued past that warm up pain, is that bad, or like should I have done that because it stopped hurting and like I'm trying
So
to
that's
protect my
really
tendon?
normal. That's going to basically happen if you have a degenerative tendon, parts of the tendon that are degenerative. You're probably going to desensitize to whatever you're doing. I'll tell guys oftentimes, like the way we perceive pain, I think has changed a lot in around this topic because it is so important in getting fully healthy. But one thing you want to try to remember is pain is not necessarily the end all be all of whether or not your tendon is going to progress or not. It is a good indicator of it, but it is not a perfect predictor. What matters more is what is your pain the next day? What is your pain 2 days from now? If your pain during the actual exercise goes, I mean, most of us could warm up fully and not have pain during a session. If you get to a pain or if you get to a point where you can't warm up and you're still having pain, that's a problem. And that's what happened to Isaiah. Isaiah couldn't warm up through the pain and eventually make it go away and jump through it. Most of the time, and how guys get really bad is they can. And if it gets to a point where you can't anymore, that means you're kind of royally, or my language, but fucked. You've really, really progressed to a point where it's quite bad. So what you need to do is pay attention more to the 2 days later and not to what's actually happening in the moment. Because Isaiah today, you can share your anecdote, Isaiah, because this is exactly what happened to you today.
Yeah. So I was
Yeah,
actually
stand up for this. Stand up for this.
so when I messed up my tendon, it actually wasn't that I couldn't warm up enough, is that I decided not to warm up enough. Like I was feeling the pain, and instead of staying at an intensity where the pain went down, I just proceeded to jump at 105%, and then I died. But today I was doing my jump session. Um, fifth jump was pretty hard effort. I was feeling a 3 in pain. And then I basically just stayed at that same intensity where I was feeling a 3. About 5 jumps more, the pain dropped down to like a 2. 5 more jumps after that, it was basically pain free, and then I was able to jump. basically full on after that. Yeah, pretty much it.
Wow. Gotcha.
I will now sit down again.
Oh,
Take
my
a seat,
computer
son.
light went on. I'm
Put your
back in the
sunglasses
later.
on. So the answer is no, it's not. It's not really the end all be all. If you've done everything perfectly throughout the week, that's a better indicator than the day of when you're actually having pain. If you've had a great week and you're not really noticing pain, you're doing your ISOs, and then all of a sudden when you get to that, you know, phase 4 exercise, you're feeling a high intensity phase 4 exercise, you're feeling a little bit of pain. It's not really the end of the world. Tendons are viscoelastic, so they need to be warmed up, meaning it has a property of stiffness and a property of elasticity, and it moves across that continuum depending on what the core temp of the tendon is. So, for example, if you looked at like syrup is it's viscous, right? If you cool it down, you put it in a freezer, it's almost like it will barely come out of the container. Maybe not at all. Maybe it'll freeze. If you dropped it and it was frozen, it might shatter even. And then if you heat it up, if you heat up syrup, maple syrup, it comes out really quick. It's basically like water. Same thing is kind of similar to a tendon. That is viscosity. If how like slow something is to like if you were to turn the syrup bottle upside down, how slow it comes out, that means it's very viscous. So you can measure viscosity, and that will basically determine how compliant something is or isn't. And it's this applies to substances like your tendon, or this can apply to your tendon. So it's viscoelastic, meaning it's has properties that are viscous and properties that are elastic, and that changes. And so if you're really warmed up, you're really, really warm, your tendon's going to be more compliant, meaning it's easier to stretch. And that's good because if it can stretch more easily, that means it can actually store more energy. If something's really, and there's, this is kind of confusing because it depends on what you're trying to do. What you want in high jump is something really stiff that doesn't actually stretch for too long. There's like a sweet spot for it. But for dunking, it doesn't really matter. So you want to try to be really, really warm when you're dunking because then your tendon is going to function better. It's going to be easier to stretch and you're probably going to have less pain, which means you can push harder. And if you can push harder, that means you're going to jump higher.
And a personal, I guess, like anecdote. Um, Typically, if I feel pain when I'm warming up and it doesn't go down as I get warmer, that's usually a sign that you shouldn't do the session or that you're not ready for whatever session it is. A second thing is if you warm up and then there's no pain, try to cut the session before pain sets back in, because you can warm up and then do the session and be pain free. But if you push it to like an hour and a half, 2 hours, that pain will start creeping back in at the end. And that's usually when I know I've fucked up basically. Like I've gone past the threshold.
The point of no return.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened to me during my last session that I was talking about. I was warming up and like I started doing like maybe like 80 to 90% effort jumps, just like really, really starting to try to focus on getting my height for the session to see how I was jumping. And my knee was just like dying at that point, and I was scared. I'm like, okay, well, this doesn't usually happen. And it just didn't warm up and it took forever. And it took like
Yeah,
10 to
it's heavy.
15 minutes past that point to like stop. So like the whole time I'm just thinking in my head, like I shouldn't be doing this. But
I mean,
I
sometimes what
didn't
I'll do in that scenario is do ISOs because sometimes
I
it does need to get warmer. But like if you push it when the tendon's really stiff and really brittle and you start
yeah.
loading it hard too early, and maybe you've already gotten to that point where your pain level's peaked and you can't get it to come back down. Yeah, you're if you've had the pain come down and you've been jumping all out and the pain stays low and then all of a sudden it starts climbing up, or you have a jump where it starts climbing up, that's when it's bad. But if it's really early in the session and you're still having like kind of those whatever awkward jumps, I usually will just take longer to warm up. If you watch me warm up, I take like 40 minutes. That's why, because I'm trying to build up those jumps super progressively so I can get my tendon really compliant because I'm
Yeah.
old. I'm really
Also
old.
use the pain score as like a guide too. Like you typically shouldn't be pushing past the 3 or 4.
During a session.
Like yeah.
Yeah.
Like I use the 3 or 4 scale as like if I'm feeling like a 5 or a 6 as I'm warming up, could I warm up extremely freaking slow and eventually get to the point where it's not hurting as much when I'm jumping? Yeah, but
You're not going to
at
be able
that
to jump
point,
next week if you do
at
that.
that point, it's like I know I'm not ready. But if it's like a 3 when I'm warming up, I'm like, okay, like this is gonna go down, and then I'll be good to go. But anything past that, I know I'm gonna just mess myself up. Usually, I'll only push past that if it's like a show or a
Yeah.
contest, and
You know
like
what I
I'm like,
usually, the question I ask myself is, will I be able to get this pain-free by next week if I do this? If the answer is yes, then
That's a
I'll
great
push.
one.
If the answer
That's
is no, then I won't. Like if I'm like,
yeah.
if I do this, I'm not going to be able to jump next week in less than 6 or 7 days. I'm not gonna push it.
I'm gonna
That's
start
pretty much
thinking
how I
about
treat it.
that.
What's that?
I'm gonna start asking myself that because if I'd asked myself that session, I wouldn't have been jumping for like it's going on like 3 weeks now. Had a session, couldn't fix that. Like, dude, I was warming up and like it was bad. I guess it was bad, or I guess it was worse than I thought, considering it's 3 weeks now. Like I said, like you guys just told me like I need to like maybe warm up a little bit, progress back to some like lower intensity stuff. I was trying to warm it up and I did some like wall sit ISOs. I did some like A skips and stuff. I'm just like doing anything to like keep warming it up a little bit, and
If
it
it,
was
if it
not.
wasn't warming up from wall sits and progressive jumping, you just do depth drop and cut the session. That's what I would have done. I would have done high ass
Yeah,
depth drops because that would have been a phase 3 exercise. You would have progressed back. You would have felt better tomorrow instead of having a half ass session that isn't beneficial
it
to
was,
your
dude.
dunking.
That session was so weird. Like it was pretty. It wasn't great, but that was the session I hit the self bounce hide and seek. So like it was worth it,
It's
but at the same
Sort
time it
of,
was.
sort of worth it.
it's crazy because like you can come out of a session being ahead, or you can come out of a session being behind.
Step back.
Like
Yeah.
because like that was a 3 week setback, right?
Yeah,
That could have been if you had done drops instead, you would have felt better. Now you would have been 4 weeks ahead in terms of your
You took
yeah.
progression.
you took
Like, dude,
zero
I have
step.
so
You
many.
took you tried to take a big stride forward. You tried to take 2 steps forward and ended up taking 5 steps backwards.
Fell back down the mountain.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, like I have so many like dunks on my list right now, and like just to thinking about that, like I was starting to jump high enough where I could hit them, and now to progress back 3 weeks, it's like, well, now my vertical is probably not going to be as high when I get back, so I'm gonna have to work back up to that. It's just like a whole list of things.
It's
I mean,
funny. I used that logic during my last lift. I was doing 205 on my slow squats and I felt pretty good. There was a tiny bit of pain. And then in my head, I was like, I wanted to do 225, but then I was like, I feel good now. Like I took my steps forward. There's no point in going 225, like risking it and then possibly going backwards when like I just already feel good right now. So I just cut it right there, and then I knew next time I would probably do more.
Travis just said he's got to go in 10. So start firing away your other questions, Travis.
all right. So this question you kind of covered quite a bit in the last one, but my brain can't quite wrap my head around it, so I just want to go a little deeper. So when we're warming up a tendon, okay, wait, no. I have two parts of this that I want to know. Okay, so let's say I go and do a max effort jump right now, like I'm trying to clear 12 foot on a vertex. My knee explodes, it snaps in half. Like, what does warming up do to eliminate that from happening? Is it making the tendon stiffer? Like, is my tendon extremely
Your tendon
compliant
gets
right
less
now?
stiff. It gets compliant.
So
Your
like my
tendon is
tendon's like,
when you're cold, your tendon is very stiff, very hard to stretch, and it becomes brittle. Brittle is like
oh, so like if I
wax.
jump, I shatter it.
Shatter it. Yeah. When it's
Oh,
warm, you can stretch it. It's still stiff. It's still very stiff, but it's less brittle and it can stretch more. So it's actually less elastic. It's more compliant.
gotcha.
I have a question.
Oh, you got to pull your mic down. You sound like you're in your mansion. I know your new house, your new mansion.
Can
So
you
much
hear me?
space.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So why is a more elastic tendon less painful,
Why is a more elastic tendon?
or a more viscoelastic? Yeah. Why is a less brittle tendon less
Why is
painful?
a less brittle tendon less painful?
Yeah.
Probably because peak force is lower. You probably have less peak force, and peak force is the thing that would probably cause the most amount of pain. So you'd have more peak force. The tendon cells would probably be stress shielding, and they wouldn't be ready to handle that load that you've put through the tendon. So I would assume, I don't know for sure, but I would assume that your sensitivity, the nociceptive the nerve fibers are hypersensitive, and you're probably going to cause micro damage to the actual tendon cells, and they kink and unkink basically. So they're like little springs that kink and unkink, and it's probably stress shielding. So they're very, very stiff. You put a ton of load through it very, very quickly. The nerve fibers are hypersensitive at that time, and you're not progressively lengthening and shortening the tendon. It's just like, it's basically very, very stiff, like very, very stiff. It's not actually stretching and shortening and storing and releasing. It's almost like it's just a steel bar that's not deforming. Like you want it to deform a certain amount. You want your muscle able to stretch it. So like not only that, but when you feel that pain, you're not going to be able to push into higher levels of intensity. You're not going to be able to keep stretching it progressively, so you get more and more energy out of it. You're gonna step off the gas and push the brakes, and you're going to inhibit force production.
So is it like if it's brittle, your nerves are probably telling your brain that you're not ready?
Yeah,
Like
your nociceptive
it's
nerve
like
fibers. If you're cold and stiff and brittle, you're there's no like it's more than just that too. It's like the muscles, like everything is stiff. So you don't
yeah.
have any weeping of synovial fluid into the joint. You don't have any warmth in the tendon itself. So we don't fully understand it, but I'm assuming there's things in the tendon that need to have some fluidity to them to be able to stretch and shorten. I don't fully understand viscoelasticity, like molecularly, on a molecular level, there's probably some relevance to a higher core temp of the actual tendon, allowing it to stretch. So if it's brittle, it's very stiff, very cold. The molecules are very tightly packed together, and you're asking it to store and release a lot of energy really quickly. And that probably molecularly, there's probably some relevance there. I
Your
don't.
brain's
That's
like, chill, buddy. Let's take
yeah.
it
It's
easy.
yeah. Your
Okay,
nociceptive nerve
buddy.
fibers are gonna yeah. Okay, buddy.
Okay,
Your nerves
buddy.
basically are like, yo, I'm not ready for this. Like, I'm not warmed up. I can't handle this. There's no
Yeah.
desensitize. It's not desensitized at all.
Dope.
We can only see if Buddy no shows.
Sunglasses. All right. So I thought
That's maybe a question that stumped me a little bit. That's one we don't know. We don't know the answer to that. That's a
I win,
physics
Travis.
question,
good job,
chemistry
Isaiah.
question. I can't fully answer.
I
I
wasn't I
can't answer
wasn't
with
trying to
100%
kill him.
confidence.
I was just trying to
No, that
understand.
caught me off guard. I stand.
No, I just want to say that was my question.
You stand corrected. That's a very hard question to answer because it goes to the molecular level.
Okay, buddy. So I
Pal,
do have a question that I feel like a lot of people are going to be asking about something that you said recently. And like 5 minutes ago. I know the answer to this kind of, but you said when we're warming up the tendon, we're trying to make it more compliant, like more stretchable, right?
Isaiah, I can only see your eyeballs. What is this? Are you
Buddy,
hiding?
you're capping, buddy.
All right, go ahead. What were you saying?
All right, so I gotta think of it again, John.
You were saying warming up, like you know the
Okay,
answer
no,
to this
yeah.
question.
So I know the answer to this question, or kind of. I know some of it, but I feel like a lot of people are gonna be wondering this based on something you said like 5 minutes ago. So when you were warming up a tendon, we're making it more compliant, making it more stretchable, right?
Hmm.
Correct. So why shouldn't someone stretch their tendon? Like just like, oh, let me
What,
go,
what
let
do
me
you
go
what do you
stretch
mean,
it
like
for
static
20 minutes to
stretching?
warm it up.
Static
You know what I
stretching?
mean? Yeah, like why
Because it adds load. It adds load to an already loaded tissue, an overloaded tissue. It is a very non, it doesn't increase, it has no purpose. It doesn't increase core temp. It can
yeah,
add compression, and it adds a type of load that is basically non-functional. It doesn't increase the strength of the muscle. It doesn't desensitize the tendon in a meaningful way with a high force output. And that's pretty much it.
gotcha. Well, sunglasses, that's all I gotta say.
You have 4 minutes,
So
Travis.
all right, I mean that's like the majority of everything. Let me look to my questions list one more time to see if
Yeah,
there's
see if you
anything
got
you
one more question you can stump me on. So Isaiah's question, why does a brittle, stiff tendon hurt more? I'm going to go with the molecules are tightly packed and it's not desensitized. That's my answer.
Okay. This question will probably be pretty short and simple, and you've talked about this plenty of times before, but I was gonna ask you about it myself. Should I take a collagen supplement before I train or jump or
There's not definitive research that says you should but there's definitely not definitive research that says you shouldn't. There's more research in favor of it than there is research against it. There's no research against it. There's some very limited basic science research that says you should, but you can't make clinical recommendations, meaning you can't go into a hospital and tell all the people with joint pain to start consuming collagen. No medical doctor is going to recommend that. He would just say, there's limited research that shows this may be effective. There's I don't know, if I had to throw a number up, there's a 25% chance it's effective.
So it's just one of them things where it's like you might as well do it.
Yeah, there's no harm in it if you can afford it. It's not going to upset your stomach. It kind of tastes like shit and it's time consuming, but that's basically it. Yeah, it's the only reason.
Or you could eat Jello.
You could just eat Jello, yeah. But
I used to do that when I first started getting on THP. I bought tons of Jello.
Jello's that's a lot of sugar though, so you might get fat.
No, yeah.
I remember. I just want to say how much the tendon stuff training has advanced. I remember when I used to cross friction massage my tendon for like 5 minutes.
Cross friction massage.
Instead of it was I did them like they were
the two
ISOs.
Old guys on YouTube that talk about it.
Yeah, I would literally just be in there like fingering. I think there's a video on my YouTube of me just fingering my tendon before a session,
just rubbing it to oblivion.
Yeah.
All right, Travis. Thank you for doing the podcast. We're gonna post this up ASAP. We appreciate you coming on and asking these questions and trying to stump me. Isaiah, you did a good job. Travis,
hey,
your questions were too easy. We're gonna need you're honestly, you're probably like a 10th grade level right now. Okay,
dude.
If I want 10th grade level questions about tendons,
I can think up some questions that'll stump you. I was just trying to understand my tendons a little better.
I don't know.
All right, next podcast, you're getting wrecked, buddy.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a weekly installment.
How about this, Travis? I'll stump you, Travis. Okay, how about that? That'll be my goal. I'll quiz you and see if you can answer the questions.
Oh, I thought you were saying something different.
Oh, I'll stump you.
I was about to put my address in the chat.
No, I'll ask you questions. We'll see if I can
ask me a question right now.
You want me to see if I can? All right, let's see how much you've learned.
Something that's not just absurd hard.
Let's see. Could a single leg wall sit be more intense than a phase 3 exercise?
Dang, that's a pretty good one. I mean, phase 3 is. I'm not knowledgeable enough in the phases to give a good answer on this, but like it's not.
Seems like I've stumped you.
No, like I'm definitely stumped, but like I'm not as educated on the phases.
I don't have to come to your house anymore.
I don't think it would be more intense. I think it could be to some people maybe if they have like really weak strength levels in that position, but like it's just like a static load, you know what I mean? Like I don't think it could be that bad. I don't know.
Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Bring it.
Yes, it can be more intense.
Tell me why.
How would you make it more intense?
The reason it's so intense is because the tendon's going into a lot of compression.
That's one reason why. Let's say I'm in a quarter squat though. Single leg, pushing as hard as I can.
Single leg?
Single leg, yeah. Into a wall.
If you're pushing as hard as you can, it would still be more load going through the tendon than a small drop.
Well done, Isaiah. You've learned well.
You feel me, cuz?
Yeah. All right, Travis. Thank you for coming on. We'll end it on that note. Good luck on your call. Try not to embarrass us, okay?
I'm gonna do us a good service here.